Thank you everyone for your patience. I'd like to introduce our two guests today. So warm welcome for everyone attending our online event. Before we get started, I am going to introduce our two guests today. So it's a pleasure to introduce Doly Begum. Since 2018, Doly has represented Scarborough Southwest in Ontario's Parliament. As a member of the New Democratic Party, she has served as a member of the Standing Committee on Social Policy, and she is a critic for early learning and childcare. Doly is a graduate of the University of Toronto and has a master's in development, administration, and planning. She was elected to the Ontario Legislature in June of 2018 and is the first Canadian of Bangladeshi origin to hold elected office at any level in Canada. She's a former co-chair of the Scarborough Health Coalition and is a was a vice chair of Warden Woods Community Centre, an organization Scarborough Food Security Initiative currently partners with. So on that note, it's an honor to introduce Suman Roy. With a culinary career that spans more than 23 years, Suman Roy now brings his passion for food and his commitment to fresh, local, culturally relevant, and of course, healthy ingredients to his role as director of Scarborough Food Security Initiative. Suman has served as a member on the Board of Health for the City of Toronto, the Toronto Food Policy Councillor, as an advisor for the first ever food strategy for the City of Toronto, and has served as a chairperson for Food Share's Board of Directors. Currently, Suman is the chair for Scarborough Arts Board of Directors, and of course is the brains behind our operations here at Scarborough Food Security Initiative. Today we wanted to create this space for a conversation on the issue of food apartheid in Scarborough Southwest. I will be monitoring the questions from our audience, so please feel free to comment as we are live. To start the conversation off, let's define what food apartheid is. And it follows as such. Food apartheid is a result of systemic uneven distribution and access to affordable and nutritious food affecting Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities. So on that note, I'll pass the conversation off to our director, Suman Roy. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Doly, for joining us. We really welcome you to our space here. With a very important conversation that a lot of levels of government don't really get into and talk about, but it's our role to really get to the bottom of the issue that we face in Scarborough Southwest. So on that note, why do you think food deserts or food apartheid really exist in Scarborough Southwest?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me here. It's so wonderful to have this space. I'm really amazed on the work that Apartheid has done to pull this together. It's truly remarkable. So congratulations, and congratulations to the whole team. I'm so proud. Especially because during COVID, we saw exactly what you're talking about in terms of the insecurity when it comes to food, when it comes to the level of food insecurity we were facing even prior to COVID. I think was visible in Scarborough Southwest. Scarborough Southwest is a very mixed neighborhood where we have communities that are struggling with housing, that are struggling with transit, that are struggling with food, as well as in terms of when we talk about just general affordability and to be able to get by on a day-to-day basis and the type of income that we have. Scarborough South is one of those locations, one of those areas where we have like where we live, for example, the community that I live in, the Oak Ridge community, I have talked about it in the legislature where the community is facing such a dire need for specific services that allows people to have a lifestyle where they can make sure that they have breakfast in the morning, make sure that they have dinner before they go to sleep. So yes, Scarborough Southwest is one of those communities that we need to do much better when it comes to providing the security for food. I'm being told to speak a little bit louder, so I will try my best.
Okay, that's perfect. One thing, you're absolutely right, Dolly, but one thing that really opened my eyes, living in this community for so long, I knew the food insecurity and the food deserts in the area. But one thing that really opened my eyes when we dug into more data, our data as well as the city's data, that almost 70% of low-income neighborhoods in the GTA are home to racialized communities. That is a huge number, 70%. 13% out of that is Black community, 13% Asian, and 19% Southeast Asian. Those are huge numbers.
And those correlate with
where we are. Exactly. And 74% of Scarborough Southwest is home to racialized people. So you can see the correlation that where issues are, it is nothing less than a racial discrimination when we talk about poverty as well as transit issues in where we are. It's nothing less than a racial discrimination. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Well, I think I would even go as far as looking at the data for how COVID hit different neighborhoods in the GTA. And ours was one of those locations where there are pockets that were affected, much more severely than other areas. And when we talk about food security, it's not just starvation for a day. It's not just we're not able to get food. I mean, and I'm sure you know really well in the sense of, are we talking about the type of food someone has access to? Is it enough nutrition in there? Are we talking about making a decision between food as well as medicine? We're talking or shelter. I was at T-Cell just this weekend, and we're talking about a lot of over 5,000 applications that are already in the landlord and tenant
For eviction.
for eviction.
Wow.
And when we look at that, we're facing a situation where there will be a crisis when we have a lot of these people who are told that they have to either agree to a very high payment plan or get evicted. And these people do not have the ability to decide whether they're not going to be able to sign up for something that they have really done.
And if they try to do that, then where do they get money to eat?
Exactly.
It's a huge issue for sure.
Exactly. We saw this with the CERB payment as well. It was around $2,000, and there were landlords that were telling tenants that why don't you use your CERB payments to pay your rent? And we know that sometimes even the rent, it wasn't enough to pay that rent, and once you pay that, you don't have enough money to
Eat or transit or go.
exactly.
Even to go to get food.
Exactly.
Because we know the food deserts that exist where you need to change buses 3 times to get to a grocery store. Like where do you have money for transit?
Exactly.
No, it's I'm totally with you on that.
The reason, and I want to be very clear, the reason I point out tenants is because tenants are disproportionately affected when it comes to food insecurity. And then we're looking at homeowners who have mortgages, and then we're looking at different circumstances. But it is mainly tenants who have to make those tough decisions.
I totally agree. So on that note, Dolly, what do you want to tell people who are in our community facing food insecurity?
Well,
What is your message to them?
Well, I think as a politician, and I say this, as humble as I can be, I think it's not up to the politicians to tell anyone who's facing food insecurity any way, to get by. I think it's rather that our job to listen to these people, to our community members who are facing these difficulties, and say, you know what? These community members who are facing these difficulties, we should do something about it. And as political representatives, it's our job to listen and actually come up with the solutions to address these challenges that we're facing. So instead of me telling them, I'm giving them a message, I think it's for me to take that message and make sure that we actually fix this problem, because we have a long way to go, and the government's right now not addressing it the way they should.
So that brings me to my next question, and very follow-up is, what is the provincial government doing or not doing currently to address the food apartheid issues, especially in communities like ours? And is there anything that is in the works, in the pipeline, that we don't know of that will make us feel a little better?
To tell you the truth, Suman, unfortunately, I do not believe the current Ford government has a plan or has this on their agenda in terms of addressing the challenges of food insecurity or tenants struggles or housing crisis. When we look at the previous bills that were passed in the last 2 years, as well as the way we see how this government's kind of rolling things out, I am doubtful that they will have this on top of their priorities, which is extremely unfortunate, and that is a result of the reason for that. This is the result of it. Is people like yourselves, advocates, experts, as well as folks around the city who are going above and beyond to do their best and provide people with the support that they need. This is sort of you're trying to help people get through the crisis. But when it comes to government, they should really get to the root of the problem and I think we have to make sure that we push this government, and all of us combined, we push this government to actually address this because it's not on their agenda.
Exactly, and like so far we have fed over 70,000 people in the last 5 months, and from the province we haven't got a penny support to do that. It was all we got federal, we got some from the municipal, but nothing from the province so far, and it's heartbreaking that there is such a huge food desert community here, and there is nothing that the government is doing about it.
Yeah.
So my next question to you is, what solutions do you propose as Dolly or as MPP from this area that we should do? Like, do you have any ideas that even as a community, may not be organizations like us or community members or people who are food secure can do for the people who are food insecure? What kind of solutions do you think that, or some ideas that we can steal from your head for our next project? Do you have anything that you can share?
Well, I think that's a much bigger conversation than a short sort of dialogue right now, because there are a few things. And first, I want to give a shout out to your organization, as well as our local food bank, the Bluffs Food Bank, and the farmers markets, all the organizations that are doing incredible work, because what you're doing is really standing up and helping the community members, the children in our communities.
Seniors.
A lot of seniors in our communities that are facing a really difficult time. So first, a big shout out to all of you, and honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. But that's not the solution, because it's great to have those, but the number of people who are facing food insecurity, and if I put on my MPP hat, as well as a community member who grew up in this community, who grew up with a reasonable sort of income, where we're struggling, immigrant family, and then obviously with my family situations, there are times where we had to make really tough decisions. So I know what my neighbors are facing, and I know what my community is going through when I speak to this, because there are times when you don't want to go to a food bank. There are times you don't want to talk about the fact that you're not able to provide the best breakfast for your kids, or the times I used to love Power Snack, because I knew that me and my classmates, many of us, that was the best sort of healthiest meal for many of us, because and it was the nutritious meal that would give you the energy for the rest of the day. And I remember I went to Gordon Brown Middle School, where we had Power Snack, and so the reason I'm pointing this out is because there are a lot of people who are not able to openly talk about the fact that they are facing food insecurity. So now let's step back and figure out, how do we help these people who are facing this situation? And the only way, and I'm sure there's a lot of experts who have much better research, and this is from my experience in talking to community members, what I feel is when we have good stimulus packages where people are feeling financially stable, then they're doing better when it comes to food insecurity. They're getting out of that trap. We're also looking at people who are in part-time, precarious jobs. We're looking at people who, if they have, like in my family, we only had one person, for example, making income. So that meant that the rest of the family members were reliant on this person who is, doing a low-income job and without any benefits or any security. And a lot of these people are the one who face situations like that. So how do we address those challenges? So we're looking at the type of jobs that people have, the type of benefits, and then addressing the challenges when it comes to the basic income. And I think, and I feel very passionate about basic income.
Yes.
I think a lot of us here do, a lot of us in this community do, because that is one of those paths I think we should walk towards, and I think the government needs to take it very seriously. We noticed during this crisis how important it was, and there was a lot of money being poured in different directions. So why not do it for the best solution ever, which is to help local people? And I see hands being
Yes. So on that note of COVID, we actually have one of our audience members who's asked the question, how has COVID impacted food insecurity in Scarborough Southwest? And I will leave that up to Suman or Dolly.
Do you want to take that?
Well, I think both of us
Yes.
can actually
Yeah,
talk a little
for
bit
sure.
about it. And if I understood correctly, when we were talking about, so before COVID, there was some data that showed, throughout the last maybe 2-3 years. And I remember in 2018, when I was, going to different doors in this riding, we talked about food insecurity. We talked about the large number of people in Ontario that face this problem. And then obviously in Scarborough Southwest, which is one of those ridings that has a higher number of people. And then we talked about children and seniors being one of those groups of people that are affected in much more than others. So during COVID, we noticed that there were families that you never imagined would be facing something like food insecurity come forward and ask for support. And I think that tells us how our results in the past, how the numbers did not really reflect the true impact or the true numbers in terms of how many people were actually going through the struggle. And I'm sure the number of people, you said 70,000 people that you served?
we have served, but there's two numbers that I'm going to give which kind of will give you the answer. In the city of Toronto, from pre-COVID to post-COVID, use of food banks have gone up by 200%. 200%. That's a daily food bank research. From our Scarborough Southwest area, our only food bank that existed pre-COVID was the Bluffs Food Bank. They were serving approximately 350 households every week. Post-COVID, when Bluffs was closed and we were the only one doing it at that time, we were serving up to 1,000 households every week. So 3 times that number only in our little bubble. Think about it on a larger scale. So yes, the food insecurity has grown exponentially, unfortunately, during COVID. When you were giving the answer to the last question, one story that came onto my mind, which I want to share because there's 2 stories actually, and both really brought tears to my eyes every time I say that. So I have a volunteer who's in high school, and he told me a story about his personal life. He says, pre-COVID, of course, during school, every lunch break, when the break happens, he left the school, left his friends, and went for a walk around the block, a long walk. And I asked him why. He said, "Do you want to be healthy? What is the reason?" He said, "No, my mother didn't afford lunch, and I don't want my friends to see that I don't have lunch." And another story which kind of hits me really hard, I'm not going to name the school, just when COVID started, the teachers were all doing online classes, and a kindergarten child was having a class with their teacher. And at the end of the class, the teacher said, "So guys, what is the plan for the rest of the day today?" And the kindergarten kid says, "Oh, I'm so happy today because we're going to go to the food bank, we're going to get some food finally." That's our community, my friends.
So on that note, we also have another question from Candice Liu, and she says, "Interesting to hear Dolly's ideas about solutions and would also love to hear more about what Suman has done and been able to create."
Awesome. So that is a great point. So we started off in March with delivery-only food bank. From there, when Toronto went into phase 3, we stopped the delivery piece, but we have 2 food banks now. One on Byng Tower, which is Danforth Road and Danforth Avenue, and one here on Kingston Road, 2229 Kingston Road. So we do these 2. We are very soon looking into opening a 3rd one in Gordon Ridge community. That's another very community that needs a little bit of help from us. After that, since beginning of July, we started a hot meal program out of the Legion on Kingston Road, where Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we serve a hot meal, a healthy meal to anybody who comes in and is hungry, no question asked. Within a month, that number of servings that we do per day has doubled from what we were doing in July to what we're doing now. So, when we talk to the clients who come in, we realize that people are changing 2-3 buses to get to us. That's ridiculous if we have to change 2 or 3 buses to get a meal. It is absolutely ridiculous. So we were lucky enough to get a United Way grant, so we got a bus on the road. So we are going to go Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 3 or 4 locations around Scarborough Southwest and hand out food to whoever needs. So we don't need them to come to us, we will come to them. And the other program, which we're going to start by middle of September, is on a mobile market for fresh fruits and vegetables. there's a lot of areas where there is no access to grocery stores or fresh food. So we're going to go there. Those, of course, we're going to sell the produce. However, it will be a wholesale cost only. So it will be much cheaper than even a grocery store. More culturally appropriate food is what we hope to do. So these are a few programs that we have planned for the rest of this month and beginning September. And right now we just received another grant from the Red Cross to do a training program for youth, new immigrants and refugees on hospitality and culinary to get them employed into the business. So we are planning on that in our next couple of months.
Brilliant. All right. Well, on that note, we should end on a happy note and talk about all these long-term solutions that we have to food insecurity. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and stay tuned for some more updates on this conversation on food apartheid. Thank you, Doly, and thank you, Suman.
Thank you, Doly, for coming in. Really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks, everybody.